Karen calls 911 on black woman moving in, but what the cops discover leaves her speechless. It was a sunny afternoon in Oak Ridge Estates, a well-manicured neighborhood where everyone's lawn was perfectly trimmed, and everyone looked the same. Until the day she arrived. She wasn't loud. She wasn't confrontational. She was just different. And that was enough to call the police. But what those officers discovered, it turned a nosy neighbor's call into a full-blown investigation that would rattle the entire community. This is not just a story about bias. It's about secrets, justice, and a truth buried in plain sight. June 4, 2023. A bright Saturday morning in suburban Georgia. A moving truck idled in front of 112 Amber Ridge Lane. Sweat glistened on the forehead of 33-year-old Amara Collins as she hauled the last of her boxes into the split-level home she'd just purchased. A proud new homeowner. A neurosurgeon. And a black woman. To her, this was the beginning of something beautiful. To her neighbor across the street, it was something else entirely. From behind lace curtains, 59-year-old Nancy Whitaker watched. Her lips pursed. Her phone in hand. She didn't wave. She didn't welcome. Instead, she dialed 911. Operator. 911, what's your emergency? Yes, hi, I think someone's breaking into the Henderson house. There's a woman outside, she's taking boxes out of a truck. She doesn't belong there. She looks suspicious. Operator. Can you describe her? Nancy. Black. Mid-30s maybe. Wearing leggings. She just keeps going back and forth. I think she's casing the place. Nancy didn't mention the for sale sign had been removed days ago. She didn't ask. She assumed. And minutes later, 2 patrol cars rolled up with sirens silenced but lights flashing. Amara was mid-lift when she saw the officers approach. Hands on her hips, confused but calm. Officer Daniels. Ma'am, can we see some ID? We got a report of suspicious activity. Amara. I live here. I just closed on this house Tuesday. She reached for her wallet slowly, methodically. Because black Americans know every gesture can be misread. She handed over her ID and the deed paperwork. But before the officers could even verify her information, Nancy came storming out of her house in a robe and slippers. Nancy. She doesn't live there. I know the Hendersons. They'd never sell to. She stopped herself. Too late. Everyone heard. Officer Daniels narrowed his eyes. The ID matched. The paperwork was in order. He turned to Nancy. Officer Daniels. Ma'am, this homeowner is not only authorized to be here. You may be interfering with an officer's investigation. I was just trying to help. I didn't mean. But it was too late. Because while Daniels spoke with Nancy, his partner, Officer Ramirez, had wandered to the side of the house. Something had caught his eye. Behind the house, near the basement entrance, a small door sat slightly ajar. Curious, Officer Ramirez knocked. No answer. So he opened it. And what he found wasn't boxes. It was a steel trapdoor with a lock. And scratch marks on the inside. Ramirez into radio. Daniels, you're going to want to see this. Amara stood on her new porch, puzzled. What's going on? The officers didn't answer right away. They called for backup. A forensic team arrived. That basement had secrets. Beneath a rug, beneath the cement. An unregistered room. Soundproofed. With shackles. The Hendersons had owned this house for 22 years. They were a respected couple in the neighborhood. Or so everyone thought. As officers worked, Nancy hovered, frantic. She tried to talk to anyone who would listen. I had no idea. I thought. They had church meetings in that basement. Bible studies. But it wasn't Bible studies. When the forensic team pulled out a blacklight, the walls told a darker story. Blood spatter. Fingernail scratches. Hair fibers. All old. All undisturbed for years. Nancy went pale. She was speechless. For the first time that day, she was silent. Amara stood in her front yard, numb. The home she saved for, the symbol of her success, was a crime scene. And now her name was being written into its story. Not as a victim, not as a suspect, but as the unwitting key that unlocked decades of horror. The Hendersons had vanished 6 months earlier, supposedly retired to Florida. No forwarding address. No real estate agent. By morning, Amara's home was surrounded in yellow tape. Drone footage captured what looked like a newsworthy tragedy. But behind the scenes something bigger was brewing. Hidden beneath the trapdoor was more than a room. There were old files, photos, IDs, and one long-forgotten Polaroid of a woman. Eyes wide, mouth duct-taped. Dated 1999. Officer Ramirez. This wasn't just a one-time thing. This was organized. Inside a locked cabinet, multiple fake birth certificates, a burner phone, and a list of names, most of them Black or Latino women. Many marked cleaned. Pending. Amara was relocated to a hotel while the investigation continued. Her belongings were sealed off. Her ownership of the house, now part of a federal probe. She watched the story unfold from a hotel TV. Her own name plastered across headlines. New homeowner uncovers human trafficking hub in Georgia suburb. 911 call exposes decades-old secret. I was just trying to move in. I didn't expect to walk into this. She wasn't sleeping. She wasn't eating. The weight of history sat on her chest like a stone. There was no real estate agent. No closing lawyer Amara had ever met in person. All documents were digital. But when the feds traced the wire transfer, it led to an offshore account. Fake identity. No trace of the Hendersons. But there was a name hidden in metadata. Whoever sold her this house wanted it off their hands fast. And one partial fingerprint on the trapdoor lock matched someone surprising. Not the Hendersons, but their son, Martin Henderson Jr., a former security consultant. Discharged dishonorably. Missing since 2018. Across the street, Nancy was unraveling. News crews camped out near her lawn. Protesters had arrived, some holding signs that read, "Believe Black women," and 911 isn't your personal racism line. Nancy gave a tearful interview. Nancy Vaking. I didn't know. I thought she didn't belong, and now I see I was wrong. I'm so sorry. But not everyone accepted her apology. Because while Amara had uncovered a horror, she had also been targeted for simply existing. More. I didn't need her tears. I needed her silence not to be dangerous. One by one, names from the files were matched to missing persons cases. Mostly unsolved. Mostly forgotten. Families were called. Cold cases were reopened. One mother sobbed when shown the Polaroid. "Mrs. Rivera. That's my daughter. That's my Letitia. They told me she ran away." The Hendersons had led a double life. Church volunteers. Charity donors. But their home was a trafficking center disguised as suburbia. They targeted women who wouldn't be missed quickly. Women whose skin tone was a cover for their crimes. Amara could have walked away. Left the house. Changed cities. But she didn't. She retained a lawyer. Filed for civil damages. And began organizing healing retreats for women affected by cold cases. She held her first press conference 6 weeks later. Amara, calm but fierce. This house was supposed to be my peace. Instead it became my purpose. I will not let this community bury its shame under manicured lawns and silent stairs. Then weeks later, there was a break. A woman was found wandering near the Alabama border. Disoriented. Dirty. She gave a name that matched one from the pending list. She said a man, Martin, had driven her in a black van and left her there when things got hot. He had told her, "We don't need the house anymore. Someone else owns it now." Amara eventually reclaimed the house. She partnered with advocates and turned the property into a recovery center. One room remains sealed, left untouched as evidence. The Hendersons were never found. Martin is still on the run. But Amara? She's no longer just a name in a news cycle. She's a voice. A survivor. A truth teller in a neighborhood that once tried to silence her with suspicion. Before you judge someone, before you dial 911 for your comfort, ask yourself, what are you really afraid of? Because sometimes what you think you see is nothing compared to what's been hidden right under your feet. If you or someone you love is a survivor of trafficking or wrongful suspicion, share your story below. Subscribe to Hope in Shadows for more true crime stories that center truth, justice, and healing. Because silence is the real killer.